Welcome home to St. Anne's. We want you to know that you're welcome to join us at 10 a.m. on Sundays. Please be sure to hit subscribe to receive our sermons. We can't wait to meet you.
Of you know, I was actually educated in my elementary years in a Roman Catholic school. I've been Episcopalian forever, but my parents decided they liked Roman Catholic education, so that's what I attended. So I'm a weird combination of things. I'm a lifelong Episcopalian, but I also have a lot of training in the Roman Catholic traditions. So saints were a big deal for me. And so we would have, we would dress up like Mary and dance around with flowers on our head as we circled a statue of her. We always had, saints' days. And one of the things we would do is we had a program where you would choose your favorite saint, you would dress up as your saint, and then you would talk about them.
And
most little girls are married because
there aren't
that many girls to choose from.
And
Mary in the Roman Catholic tradition is kind of a big deal.
So Mary
is who you default to.
But me being me, that's not who I went with.
Saint Francis was my favorite. And you guys know that I'm an animal lover. I adore dogs. I adore anything really. If it has legs and it's not human.
So I decided that I would be St. Francis because St. Francis has always been my favorite saint. My patron saint is St. Francis of Assisi. And as many of you know, he's kind of the patron saint of animals and all that stuff, which is why we do the pet blessing for St. Francis of Assisi. So complete with my mom had to make a monastic robe for me, and it was a whole thing, and I had stuffed animals. It was a big thing. So for my entire life, St. Francis has been kind of my guy. And I think we're missing the point sometimes. Because what we peg St. Francis as is this guy who loves animals, right? Or at least that's what I did as a child. And I think that's what we frequently do with St. Francis. We distill him down to animal lover extraordinaire. But that's missing the point of why he was so into creation and so into animals and all those things. So a little bit about him, because I think it leads into our gospel very, very well. So St. Francis was a monk. He was a Franciscan monk. What we would call in the high Middle Ages, so probably born around 1182 to the 1200s. And what's important to know about that time period in Italy is that it was coming into the height. It was coming into the Renaissance. So you have a lot of merchants, a lot of wealth coming into Italy at the time. And his father was a merchant. So Francis comes out of extreme wealth and privilege. Extreme wealth and privilege. I think it's hard for us to comprehend. But think of our super wealthy, uber wealthy people who make money, Amazon, for instance. Because, So just extreme merchant wealth. That's what he's coming out of. And it is expected that that's what he will continue to do. So he is expected to continue to be a merchant, to continue to be wealthy. And he finds Christianity and he's like, forget that, I don't want to do that. And he decides to become a monk. And he actually starts the Franciscan tradition. So that's what I want us to comprehend, because he understands power and privilege. He understands control and wealth and all that comes with it. He understands being in charge. And yet, he realizes that that's not the point. That's not what this is about. And so he gives that up because he understands that it is not power and control and being in charge that matters, but it is being part of, being one of a great, larger creation. And that's where he's so important to us as Christians, and where I think he can really, really be important to us as people in today's society. Where? Okay, you guys are all laughing, and I don't know. Okay. Anyway, so what he does is he gives up all this power and this wealth. And so think of what the disciples are saying at this time. They're saying, we want to be in charge. We want to be the first among the disciples. We want to be the chosen ones. What do you and I want to be? We want to be the cool ones. We want to be in charge. We want to be the popular ones. We want to have power and control and all that good fun stuff. So we're kind of struggling with the same thing. So what does St. Francis say to us? He says, no, because what being Christian is truly about is being part of, being one of a larger community. And I think that's where animals can help us, where being outside can help us. We need to be reminded that we are something that is part of, something that is a greater than, that we are not called to be super big or in charge. Can we give those things up? Can we let that stuff go? Are we going to be measured by who's in charge, who's the biggest, who's the wealthiest, and all that good fun stuff? Because we do that as churches too, don't we? We do that on every scale. What is America's biggest thing? We're the superpower. What are we really worried about in this world right now? What if China's the superpower? Who's going to be the superpower? We're really worried about being the superpower, maintaining superpower status. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't want China in charge because I'm pretty sure they wouldn't approve of me. However, what we're worried about is who's in charge and the power. In churches, what are we worried about? Who's in charge? Who's in power? Who's the biggest church? Who has and who can bend the ear of government? Who has the best lobbyists? Who in this church has the most power and the most control? You think it's not me. I promise you it's not me. But what if we changed in our family? Who has power and who has control? In your friend group, who has power and who has control? That's what we're worried about, isn't it? We're worried about power and control. And we're worried about wealth. And we're worried about all this stuff that we're worried about. But Jesus turns that on its head. Francis turns that on his head. And he says, no, wait. It is about servitude. It is about God being in charge, God having the power, God having the glory, and about us being part of a world that serves that God. We do that in all sorts of different ways. And that's why I really think we can probably learn the best from dogs, because dogs get that. Dogs get that. They love unconditionally. They realize that they're part of a pack. They're part of a larger creation. Now, don't get me wrong, they all want to be the alpha. My 14-year-old here is running around trying to be the alpha of this entire group. He ain't the alpha. But don't tell him. Shh. We don't tell him. But what does it mean for us to give all that stuff up? What does that mean for us to live in a world where we realize that we are part of creation? We are not in charge of creation. We're not seeking to destroy it or tame it or control it, but that we are part of it. Because that's what Francis got. He got that preaching to the birds was the same as preaching to the people. He got that being in charge of his Franciscan order was not about being in charge, but about being part of a monastic order and helping guide that, but not being in control of it. So I ask us today, what does that mean for us? What does it mean for you and me to say, I'm not in charge of this. I don't need to control this. I'm not clinging to this in fear, but I'm going to let go of it. I'm going to be part of something bigger and greater. And all that stuff that I'm a part of is to serve God. Ooh. Let's stand together and say the words of the Nicene Creed.
We want you to know that you're welcome to join us
We
10
believe in
a.m.
one
on
God,
Sundays.
the
Please
Father,
be
the
sure to
Almighty,
hit subscribe to
maker
receive
of
our
heaven and
sermons.
earth,
We can't wait
all
to
that
meet
is
you.
seen and unseen. We believe in one Lord Jesus Christ, the only Son of God,